Oh, hey, Ben, how are you?
Good morning, Alex. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning.
Okay.
But yeah, so how are you doing today?
I can't complain, you know, just trying to keep everything in motion.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, and I love that. Especially, well, it's more pertinent for you, right? Because you're a transportation and logistics company. So I mean, today the real goal of today is to just kind of share a bit about your company. Again, my name is Alex Reyes. I am a producer, with USI Insurance Services. I promise you, I'm not going to try and sell you insurance or underwrite your group health plan. My goal is to learn about you, your company, and then basically what we're doing is the platform that promotes business owners as thought leaders amongst their peers. So our audience is all business owners and executives, and we're trying to share success stories, some of the challenges that our business owners are facing, operation efficiencies, compliance, whatever's kind of keeping you up at night, any of the innovations that you're using or ways that you're adjusting with the market. So I'd love to, just dive in, right? Cupboard Wagon, kind of it's interesting name, right? Like Cupboard Wagon. I love the logo. How'd you guys get started?
So, the company's been around for about 20 years. And, I guess prior, I had spent my career in IT, about 20, close to 25 years. And then I decided I wanted to do something different.
Hmm.
And that doing something different was to acquire a business. And so about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I acquired Cupboard Wagon, and that's basically what I've been doing full time. For the last 3.5 years now. The company was founded about 20 years ago with a husband and wife, and they built up a very successful small business, and they were ready to retire.
That's fascinating. I never even thought of like that acquisition must have been, is that something that you'd done before or?
No, actually, I spent about 18 months kind of learning the whole process of business acquisition. And after about 18 months and probably going through about 30 different deals, I had narrowed it down to a couple different potential targets. And Cupboard Wagon just seemed to be the best fit for me at the
Huh,
time.
that's awesome. Is it like local to you, or is it nearby, or are you
Uh,
completely remote? How's that work?
yes, so the business is probably about an hour west of me. I'm in the Philadelphia area,
Hmm.
and so I'm usually out there maybe once a week, every other week. One of the important things for me when I was looking at an acquisition target was making sure that I had an individual that could run day-to-day operations for me. And I was pretty fortunate to have a gentleman there who was very capable of doing that. And so he pretty much runs day-to-day in terms of our scheduling, customer interface, dealing with customer issues, scheduling drivers, maintaining the trucks, and so forth. And then I have a part-time bookkeeper that comes in twice a week, and then also works remotely, and she handles most of the bookkeeping from AP, AR, check processing, things like that. And then, really, my primary role in the business today is one that I do all of the invoicing of all of our deliveries because it is a little bit complex. So I really like to keep my hands on that. And then another major focus for me is really working on the business. Um, and so this year, there's been a very big focus on digital marketing, really around redeveloping our website. And we are in the process of rolling out an email drip campaign to very specific target markets.
Nice. Now, I can tell, like, I don't know if you're rolling out another one, but your website it caught my eye right away. I was like, oh, this is very interesting looking. So what is a target market for you? What's your growth plan? How are you approaching that project?
Yeah, so really we have two customers in our primary business. So just so you understand that we are in a very niche market,
Hmm.
and we are all about delivery and transportation of high-end cabinetry.
Hmm.
We pick up, we store in warehouse, and then we do the final mile delivery of those cabinets, and that's all we do. So our primary customer are cabinet manufacturers, right? And then we have a secondary customer, which are kitchen dealers, architects, interior designers, that when they are specifically ordering kitchens or cabinets from one of our cabinet manufacturers, they will request for us to do the delivery. Our primary customer are cabinet manufacturers, and by default, we are an extension of their business. We have a very structural relationship with them, and we're their delivery arm for the most part. Now, there might be one or two other delivery providers that they use, that's just the way it goes, right? You can't put all of your eggs in one basket, but primarily on a day-to-day basis, they'll send us, whether it's one set of cabinets or 10 sets of cabinets. This is what we are looking to deliver next week or in the following week. They'll send us what's coming down the pike, and then really that's where our customer service really takes over, is that once they send us that piece of information, we then coordinate the entire logistics process from beginning to end for our customers.
Yeah, that it makes total sense to me why you would hire, especially with the luxury cabinet, market, right? That you would hire a specific company or logistics company that's working almost exclusively in cabinetry, because I assume that your incidence of like damages and claims are probably much lower than when you're hiring even just a mover, or if you're hiring like a regular freight company. You guys know exactly how to handle those materials.
No, absolutely. That is one of the other things that we bring to the table, is that our drivers and our driver helpers, they are all trained in terms of how to handle a cabinet properly, how to handle cabinets that are constructed differently, right? Whether based on the materials of that cabinet, the frame or frameless structure of the cabinet, and so forth. And we blanket wrap each of those cabinets, we band them, and and really the way that we minimize damages, it's the most important part of what we do is how we load our trucks, right? That you really need to be very cognizant and aware of how you're loading that truck. And one of the things that we liken it to is the video game Tetris. That's it, man. Nice and tight and neat, so that when we're driving down the road at 60 miles an hour, the cabinets aren't banging against each other, that they're staying steady and tight, when they're strapped down.
Nice. Just talk to me a little bit about, so the first thing that comes into my mind whenever I think about trucking, always like DOT regulations, right? So like, is that something that you had to spend a lot of time like learning and making sure that you were compliant? I'd love to learn a little bit about some of the like Department of Labor and Department of Transit, right? Regulations that you had to adjust to, and how'd you learn, or how'd you do it?
Some of it was by trial and error, right? Some of it was passed down, from the previous owners, but this is definitely an area when you're dealing with Department of Transportation and compliance, there is a learning curve. Probably the first thing, that I really had to learn was how to transfer ownership of DOT compliant equipment and vehicles. And there is a whole process that you go through, and in the state of Pennsylvania, and I'm sure it's probably very similar to other states. But yeah, there was a learning process around that. There is a learning process learning around what we call the quarterly IFTA reporting that's required in terms of number of miles, how much fuel you've purchased, and more importantly, where you purchased that fuel at, in which state that you purchased that fuel in.
Yeah.
Right? But there is tax requirements and sales reporting that are associated with that on a quarterly basis, that we need to file compliance reports and so forth. And then also there are regulations around our drivers, right? That our drivers are CDL, Class A or Class B drivers. So there is medical drug testing, yearly basis, pulling of motor vehicle records on a yearly basis to make sure that there are no major issues with our drivers. And then there's also dealing with our insurance liability compliance, which really they are our hiring partner when we're looking at bringing new drivers on board.
How's that?
So insurance companies will tell you, all insurance companies have minimum requirements that they're looking for, right? In terms of a number of years of CDL driving, motor vehicle record and so forth. And based on what they see in that driver from a motor vehicle record perspective, they'll come back and say, yes, you can add this driver at no additional cost. Regardless, they may come back and say, yes, they're never going to tell you that you can't hire someone, but they're going to say, hey, if you hire this guy, your premium will increase by $4,000 or $5,000 a year, right? So now it becomes a financial hiring decision, right? That do we have sufficient volume or increased volume, one that can cover that increased cost and still keep our margins, appropriate. So, in some ways, they're telling us, sure, you can make that decision, but it is yours to make.
Really interesting. Yeah, no, that sounds like compliance for me is so. Personally, I started my career in logistics. I sold for a freight forwarding company, and then I moved into a telecom company that sold ELD, electronic logging devices, for freight companies. So I had a small background in transportation logistics.
Yes, and we use ELD logs and GPS tracking in all pieces of our equipment.
Yeah. So, prior you said you were in tech. Were you in management as well? Was that like a large adjustment for you to now be sort of responsible for many employees?
No, in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Right. That in my IT career, I spent a lot of time in the enterprise resource planning space, primarily manufacturing, logistics, transportation, warehousing, and so forth. So it was an industry that I was somewhat familiar with from that perspective. But most of my time, I would probably say the last, 12 to 15 years of my career in that space, I was in project management. So I had an opportunity to manage small teams of people, 2-3 people, to multinational or global teams, right, up to 30 people. And the big difference that you find is that there is a difference in terms of how you manage people from a knowledge-based industry versus, for lack of a better term, blue-collar industry.
Right.
And I think for me, that was probably one of the bigger adjustments that probably took me a very, I'm going to say a solid 12 to 18 months to really wrap my head around. Because in my head, I'm thinking that, all right, yes, we're going to do A, B, C, and D. And you know what? When you're working with folks that have consulting backgrounds or IT backgrounds, they're very task-oriented. They're like, okay, yes, boom, 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 we'll move right through this. But, sometimes, folks, it takes time for people, one, to get to understand who you are as an individual. So developing the whole cultural aspect around people really took on new significance for us.
Interesting. Go ahead. No, keep going. It's just, really, really interesting. I think that culture shift must have been something that kept you up at night. Like for a little while, you're like, how do I manage these people and make sure that I'm coming off like the employer that I want to be, right? Like developing and cultivating that culture instead of it being like, I always said that, I sold a HR service for a little while, and it was, we said that you either have a culture by design or a culture by default, right? So like you've put a lot of work into making sure that your employees, value the culture of the company.
So one of the very first things that I did, prior to acquiring the business was that I started learning about small business, medium-sized business, management operating systems, things like scaling up our Verne Harnish EOS system and so forth, which really gave me an opportunity to kind of take some of those things from a core values perspective that I wanted to see in the business, and early on with the leadership team, which it was three of us, that we developed what we call RICE. Relationships have to be win-win. Integrity, we act with honesty and transparency. Community, that we believe in order to grow that we need to give. And then lastly, excellence in terms of providing customer service all around the board. And those are core values that really took hold in the business. And one of the things that I really did appreciate about the folks that were in the business was that they also held me accountable to those core values. That we would be having discussions and they'd be like, hey, listen, wait. Oh, is this really in alignment with our core values? I'm like, oh, okay. You know what? We we need to come back to everything we do has to be aligned with our core values. And we went through a period of time where we were hiring not based on our core values, and it impacted our business. And so that was a lesson well learned, and we took a little bit of ding with it, with our core customer base.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense for me, especially because you're in that sort of like luxury markets, right? It's not, you have to be very selective. It sounds like you're very selective about who you hire from an insurance cost perspective, but then also with the clientele that you're, primarily dealing with, the people that you hire are very important. What is the relative size of your staff? Just curious.
So we have 6 driver helpers, bookkeeper, operations manager, and myself. So basically, there's about 9 of us all together.
Awesome. And then you said you're developing this growth campaign, or trying to grow your markets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about your size and scope, right? How far in radius you're willing to move, travel, and then are you planning on expanding that, to larger markets, right?
Sure. No, great question. So our core customer are cabinet manufacturers that are generally about no more than 2.5 hours driving distance from our warehouse location. Okay. Our final mile delivery range is the entire Northeast corridor. So we go from Pennsylvania to Maine down through Virginia.
Wow.
Okay. So, and those cabinet manufacturers, they have kitchen dealers in the various states within the Northeast corridor, right? That's one of the reasons of our range. Right?
Yeah.
That being said, that in order to really grow our business, or at least part of the feeling that I do have is that we need to expand our geographical reach. And one of the ways that we're looking to do that is that we are going to be looking at other high-end cabinet manufacturers in the Midwest, Southeast, that are shipping cabinets into the Northeast corridor, right? And what's the solution that we want to provide? We want to provide a single logistics solution for you, right? That one, we can arrange LTL freight carrier into our warehouse, right? Where we can cross stock, store, and warehouse, and then provide the final mile delivery into the Northeast corridor. So instead of that cabinet manufacturer having to deal with 2, 3, or 4 suppliers and or vendors, you know what? You can use us as a single source. And we're probably one of the few companies in the country that specialize in high-end custom cabinetry. So that is part of the approach that we're looking to execute on, really probably coming up in the next few weeks.
Fascinating. It really is. It's that last mile or delivery and stage. I think that makes a lot of sense. Why you would how you could expand into those southern markets or outwards or the Midwest maybe, and then bring it all to here, and then get people that that service is brilliant. Really. I want to be sensitive to your time because we're coming up on that half-hour mark.
What time zone are you in, Alex?
I'm in New Jersey.
Oh, okay. What part of New Jersey?
I'm by Bridgewater. I'm technically I work out of Florham Park, which is near Morristown, but I live in the Bridgewater area.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're in North Jersey.
Yeah, Central. If you think it exists, right? They say there's a big myth about Central Jersey that it doesn't actually exist.
Right. It's always North and South Jersey.
Right. Yeah, but I'm like Central Jersey, really. All right, perfect. Okay. All right, Ben, this was really fun. All right, Ben, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you and have a great day.